So this is day 8 of our 3 days of Q&A. I think it's gonna be really helpful because a lot of the questions that have come in have been around how do I make a sustainable income with my music? How do I transition from a day job to focusing on my music full time? And in general, a lot of confusion or sort of lack of clarity on what's really important for me to focus on in order to make that transition. And so today I want to talk about the 2 most important metrics that every musician should know related to their music business that is going to help you to be able to make a profitable income from your music so you can focus on it full time rather than having to work a day job or something that you're not really passionate about if your biggest goal is making music. One analogy that I like to share when it comes to your metrics is that having a metric sheet is like turning on the lights in a dark room. Let's say that you lost your keys in a giant room and it's pitch black. Then it might take you a really long time to find your keys, right? You could be stumbling around searching. You don't even know really where you're looking for your keys. And so it's hard to find them. It takes a long time. This is what I see a lot of musicians doing is they're looking for their keys in a dark room. They don't even know what they should be tracking, or they don't know if a campaign is successful or not. In some cases, I talk to artists who spend tens of thousands of dollars on PR and publicity and playlists, and they don't even really know if it's working. They're like, I can see that my numbers went up a bit, but I don't really know if this is working, if it's profitable. And so having a good metric sheet is like turning on the lights in that dark room. And if the lights are on, then immediately you see the keys, right? Like immediately you're like, oh, the keys are right there. So you can walk over and grab them. And so when you're looking at your funnel metrics, then you might notice, oh, wow, my song click-through rate is 0% this week. I wonder if something is broken there. Maybe I need to go fix that. And maybe there's a tech issue. But you wouldn't know that unless you had turned the lights on and you're keeping your fingers on the pulse of your business. The bottom line is there's only 2 metrics that really matter most when it comes to marketing and it comes to monetizing your music. And those 2 metrics are cost per acquisition and value per acquisition. When you're watching Shark Tank, for example, or when you talk to experienced business owners, these are 2 questions they almost always ask for is like, how much does it cost you to acquire a customer? And how much are you earning per customer that you bring in? And ultimately, in your business, those are the only 2 numbers that really matter. So what does that mean exactly? Cost per acquisition, value per acquisition. So cost per acquisition basically means how much does it cost you to acquire a fan? If you're going to spend money to run ads, how much does it cost you per fan that you bring in? We call this your street team. And you can think about this as like an email subscriber. So this is someone who's a fan of your music, someone who joins your email list. And so cost per acquisition basically means how much does it cost you per person that joins your email list if you're running paid ads to bring in those people. So in this example, if your cost per acquisition was $1.25 per fan, then what that would mean is if you spend $2,500 in ads, then you would bring in 2,000 fans for $1.25 per fan. And if you know that your cost per acquisition is $1.25 per fan, that means that, okay, actually I want to bring in 10,000 fans. Then at $1.25 per fan, that means that you're going to spend about $12,500 to bring in 10,000 fans into your fan base. This is why it's really the core of a scalable business strategy. If you're doing organic or viral stuff, then you might get lucky, you might get a bunch of streams, but it's not really a system. It's not really reliable. Whereas if you have paid traffic, your cost per acquisition, it gives you a mechanism through which you can scale up a lot more efficiently. If you know that your cost per acquisition is $1.25 in order to bring in 1 new fan into your audience, then the other most important metric that you need to know is value per acquisition, which means how much you are earning per fan that you bring into your community. I know that for most of you, like the reason that you want to be a musician, or the reason you got into music wasn't because you were thinking, what's going to be the easiest way to make as much money as possible? I know I'm going to be a musician, right? Like that probably wasn't in your thought process. You have a calling or a passion for making music. It's something you love, you enjoy, and it makes you feel alive. And you love how it feels to express yourself in that way. And so money isn't necessarily your top priority, but in order to do it full time, in order to reach as many people as possible and invest as much into your songs and into your artwork as you can, then money is really important. And you need to figure out, how do I make as much as possible that I could continue to invest into my music and to reaching more people? If you don't have anything to offer and it's just you're streaming, you get paid a fraction of a penny per stream. It's a very low value per acquisition. And so the reason that these two numbers are the only two numbers that really matter is because even if you were paying $20 to bring in a new fan into your audience, if you're making $25 per fan you brought in, that would mean you have a profitable business and you can continue to scale it up. When it comes to paid traffic and marketing, it's just this balancing act. It's this game of cat and mouse where you're always looking to decrease your cost per acquisition and increase your value per acquisition. And as long as your value per acquisition is higher than your cost per acquisition, that means that you have a profitable campaign and you can continue to scale it up. So you'll notice here that in this example, we have 4 different types of offers that you can make to your audience. And if you're not making any offers, your value per acquisition is going to be very, very low, and it's not going to be sustainable unless you have another source of income that you're pumping into the ads. And you can see here that we have some targets here that I recommend aiming for. And these are targets that every single one of these, we have artists who are way surpassing each of these numbers, but we wanted to start here, a base foundation. And so in these targets, you can see how with each of these offers that you add, your value per acquisition is going up, but the cost per acquisition stays the same. To bring in one fan into your audience, it doesn't cost you any more if you add an additional offer. But what happens is when you add additional offers, a certain percentage of those people in your audience will take you up on the offer. Therefore, the value per acquisition starts to rise with each offer that you add, and the cost per acquisition stays the same. So that's how you can balance the scales back in your favor. Ultimately, out of everything that you're doing, the only 2 numbers that you really need to know is how much am I spending in order to bring in fans into my audience per fan, and how much am I earning per fan that I brought in. And so the value of having a metrics tracker like this is that all of these numbers populate into these final economics, which again is cost per fan, value per fan. What is your return on ad spend? That is the training for today, is understanding the 2 most important metrics. And yeah, we have the rest of the 30 days. We're probably have a chance to geek out a little bit more about your revenue funnel and what are the different types of offers that you can make and how can you present those. But I think that it's really important to understand the foundation of this whole strategy. How do I bring in as many fans as possible for as low of a cost per acquisition as possible? And then how do you increase the value per acquisition by offering them things that are genuinely valuable that they actually want? When you start running campaigns, you could trick yourself into thinking that one of the campaigns is much better than the other one because it has a very low cost per acquisition compared to another campaign. So for example, if you're targeting third world countries where there's a lot of bot traffic or it's fake people, it's fake followers, then your cost per acquisition might be super low. You might be paying a few cents to bring in a new fan into your audience. But then what you're going to find is that it's not sustainable because if you're reaching bots or fake followers, those people aren't going to come out to shows. They're not going to purchase things from you. And so really these 2 numbers for each campaign that you're running, it's good to know, okay, what's my cost per acquisition for this segment versus my cost per acquisition for this segment compared to the value per acquisition for both of them as well. Okay. Yeah. So that's the training for today. I know this is some kind of geeky stuff, but any questions that you'd like me to answer over here?
I do. You need your street team software in order to automate all those responses, right? Yeah.
Yeah, there's a couple of different costs that you'd want to factor in here when you're running your business economics. So one is you need to factor in the order fulfillment cost. If you are shipping out physical merchandise or you're doing in-person shows with travel fees and different things associated, then you need to subtract the order fulfillment cost from whatever revenue that you're generating from this. And then I would also recommend including the software cost in that as well. It's a great investment. We used to spend thousands of dollars per month to do what we're able to do with this now for $300 per month. And it's awesome, but it's definitely something you want to budget for. So you don't want to subtract that from your gross revenue so that you're left with the net revenue. And then lastly, you need to subtract the ad spend that you're spending in order to reach this amount of people. What's amazing too with this model is once you have it dialed in, you got paid $5,800 to grow your fan base by 2,000 people. It's running on its own. You're getting paid to grow your fan base, as opposed to if you are relying on an organic social media strategy, then you have to pay with your time for that. You need to show up and you need to keep releasing new content. And it's just not as systematic. It's not as scalable. If you enjoy it, if it's something that you have fun doing, then I think it's a part of the equation. You can keep releasing organic content. With Modern Musician, we've built a team of 35 members now, and we have 100,000 musicians on our email list, and we're doing multiple seven figures per year. And if you look at our social media accounts, like I post maybe once every few months on my Instagram, there's like a family update or something. And we hardly use organic social media aside from now we're at a point where we're like, okay, it would probably be good for us to have some sort of organic social media strategy. So that's why we're doing this YouTube launch. That's why we have a free course coming out. It's just so that we can provide more value in addition to our weekly live masterclass, which is usually the place that we deliver all the free value. So I think that the organic stuff can be plugged into this, but I think in terms of systems, in terms of structuring your business, that paid traffic is a much bigger opportunity because it really leverages your time. You can create an automated system in a way that doesn't necessarily rely on the luck of the draw or viral posts, the hamster wheel of organic content.
Totally agree. What's an example of an offer? What do you include in one offer, for example?
We can go into more detail with these in a later video because we've already taken up our time for today. Okay. But there's two here that are based on physical merchandise. There's one here that's based on a Patreon style subscription. And then Diamond offer is an example of a higher end premium offer for things like custom songs, retreats, or a private show. And then lastly, we're releasing our NFT marketplace. That's kind of what we're leaning towards long-term, is more into the digital products for musicians, simply because they're a lot more easy to fulfill than physical merchandise where you have to print it out, you have to pay a bunch for shipping and handling, and fans seem to enjoy the digital products just as much and are willing to invest for those. So we're leaning towards going digital moving forward. But ultimately, even just having something at these different price points, if you have something and it converts at a very low percentage rate, like 0.2%, then if it's $1,000 offer converting at 0.2%, then you see here from 2,000 people, then you made $4,000 from it. And that's part of the benefit of higher end offers as well, is that if you sell one $5,000 offer to a very small percentage of people, you could spend up to $5,000 in order to acquire that one person. You can spend $5,000 in ads in order to bring in one diamond offer. Of course, here we have to account for some fulfillment costs, whatnot, but you get the idea. Like if you have a higher end offer, then your percentage of people that need to take you up on it is much lower. When it comes to paid traffic, especially, if you really need a high end offer in order to be competitive, because it's going to cost roughly the same amount, cost per lead, to bring people in. But the person who can spend the most to acquire a customer is the person that wins. Let's say that you're competing against people who don't have higher end offers. All they have is a $7 merch bundle, just for example. Then their value proposition is 50 cents per fan, right? So they can spend up to 50 cents to bring in a fan before it becomes not profitable anymore. But if you have all these different offers and your value proposition is $4.15, you can spend up to $4.15 to bring in a new fan into your audience. Therefore, when you're bidding, then you can actually spend more than anyone else in order to acquire those fans. That's part of the game with paid traffic, especially, is that the person who can spend the most to acquire a client or a customer usually is the one who wins in paid traffic, because you can afford to spend more. You have a higher value proposition. Your cost proposition can be higher. Okay, let's wrap up for the day. I geek out about this stuff. I feel like we could probably be here for 10 hours just talking about this in particular, but thank you for the questions. I hope this has been helpful. If you're watching this right now on YouTube and you want to attend the live Zoom calls, if you click on the link in the show notes, then you can submit a question and you can actually attend these live Q&As while they're happening. And otherwise, we'll see you tomorrow. Yeah.